always looking for something kind of unique that most people haven't seen. And I think I've got something here that most people haven't seen. This is a time-lapse video cassette recorder. It's a Mitsubishi HS5424. Now, what was different about this, there were a lot of time-lapse machines that were basically just consumer machines that had been modified by somebody to make them record intermittently, where they'd record a half a second and then they'd wait for 20 seconds and then they'd record another half a second. They were more of a time step, and they didn't do a very good job. JVC had a number of those. JVC didn't officially make the machines. They were JVC machines that another company had taken the unit and modified it in such a way that it could record a long recording time. This is actually one that was produced by Mitsubishi, and as you can see, it's a 24-hour time-lapse VCR. And I have a little formula on top here on how it's calculated out, but basically it went longer than 24 hours. A T120 tape would actually run for 28 hours. A T180 tape would run for 42 hours, and 46 hours on one of those ultra-long, ultra-thin BASF T200 tapes. This is an old security recorder, and looking at it, it appears that, well, there's a tape that's kind of stuck in it. So let's take a look and see whether this thing can be resurrected from the dead. As you can see inside, it looks just like any other Mitsubishi VHS machine. It's a 4-head mono machine. It's got the standard mechanism. Doesn't seem to be anything stuck here, although this tape is not happy. But it's just a standard VHS machine, so the magic is actually in the servos. And this is where the custom circuitry is on this to make the capstan motor run at an exceptionally slow speed. But it also used a different head. This is not the normal head that would be found on a standard home VHS machine. This was a special head that had a very, very fine head gap to allow recording in real time on a regular tape. And this is the difference between this and most of the other time-lapse security recorders that you could buy that were basically modified consumer machines. This one recorded in real time, not stop motion, but real video. So it'll be interesting to see if I can get this thing going and see if there's anything on this tape, because this was my recorder, and I used this years ago before putting in a DVR system for my security systems. So the first thing I'm going to do on this unit is I'm going to remove both covers, top and bottom, because I don't want to plow this thing up without actually looking at the mechanism to see if there's anything that's been damaged. The way that tape is sitting in there tells me that something is broken. Another interesting thing about these particular machines was they could play a regular tape. You could put a regular speed VHS, and they actually did have a 2-hour speed. You could record them in real time, like regular VHS speed. If you notice on the back, there's terminals for alarm and so forth, and it also would record audio. So how this unit was designed was it would record in 24-hour mode, but for example, if someone hit a panic alarm, it would I don't remember the connection, whether it was call to alarm or whatever, but anyway, you could connect 2 pins together on the terminal block here, and the machine would then kick up. Ooh, that belt doesn't look to be in good shape. The machine would kick up into full recording speed, so that you could, you know, if this was being used in a bank, for example, to record the security cameras, and someone came in and stuck up the bank, as soon as the teller hit a button, the machine would kick into the 2-hour speed, so they could get the best quality, to get the best quality picture. So right now, right off the bat, well, the belt is melted. So that's got to go. I might have something I can put in place of that just to see if I can get this thing going. So will this one work? No, this is too big. Darn. That might be an issue because I don't have a belt like this. I've got that, but as you can see, that one's a little too big. Okay, there we go. We have a new belt in. Shouldn't have any issues with this one. This will run forever. So to eject the tape on these ones, how these ones operate is when the mechanism unloads, a clutch here engages into the reel drive. There's a clutch here, and that spins these gears, which operates the front loading mechanism. So by spinning these, I can raise or lower the cassette. Now obviously the tape is in the loaded position, so before I do that, I'm going to wind the tape back to unthread the tape. It's this direction that I have to go. And I unthread the tape, spool it back into the cassette. It's at the beginning, so it really won't matter. But we'll unthread the tape so that I can get the tape out, and then I can examine this front loading mechanism and see why the tape is going down at an angle like that. See if I can get that working. If I can get that working, then maybe I can get this thing to load the tape up again and see whether it will actually do anything. As you can see, it's trying to move the tape. Just plug it in here and it is trying to unload, but it's really sticky. Like all these Mitsubishi chassis of this design, what goes wrong on these is that this grease dries up, the black grease, and it gets very, very sticky. So the mechanism, the slide plates stop working, and when that happens, the machine itself just gets all gummed up. So what I did is I just carefully removed the tape manually. The mechanism is sticking. I think that's probably the major problem with it. You can see the black grease there's nothing left of the black grease. I'm going to have to lubricate this mechanism, but it is really badly gummed up. So we'll start by getting the bottom here lubed up to see whether that's going to allow it to thread and unthread the tape. We're going to remove the mechanism pieces. I'm going to pop off the clips that hold the mechanism together. Now I've got this in the eject state now, so it's just a matter of lifting the pieces out and putting them back together. So if I got the two clips out here, I should be able to lift out this plate now. There's a catch here I think I have to undo. Go. This should just lift out. Okay, so there's the one plate that needs to be lubricated. The other ones that need to be lubricated are underneath here, which is just this one here. I'll get out my good old Molly coat, which is the grease that actually Mitsubishi supplied, and we'll put some of that on this thing. So this is the stuff here, and I apologize for that noise. It's the kid bouncing a ball outside. It seems like every time I go to make a video, the kid next door decides to come out and start bouncing a ball around. It'll be quiet all day, and as soon as the camera turns on, the kid next door comes out and starts either smacking a hockey puck up against his target, it's like a mat that he shoots it up against, or bouncing a ball around every time. Okay, and I got the door open because it's about, I think it's like 29 out today, so it's pretty warm. With the door closed, it's unbearable in here. So we'll get some grease. Couldn't find my grease that was open, so I went and got a new one. And we're just going to put some grease on all the parts here that the cams and the slide control plates move against. First of all, I'm going to clean this grease off, so I'm just going to get some isopropyl alcohol and we'll wipe off the old grease first. I don't need to remove all this old stuff completely. I just want to get it so that it's not gummed up. So we'll just give it a wipe down, and same with this other plate here. We'll just wipe this down just to make it so it's not so dry. Okay, that is probably good enough for this demonstration anyway. If this was a client's machine and I was repairing it, I would probably clean up a little more than that, but it's not. It's my machine, and it's not going back into service. It's just to see whether we can make this thing work. So I'm going to put as little of this on as I possibly need to, because this stuff's expensive, it's hard to get, and I don't have a lot of it. I mean, you can get lithium grease, but it's not my intent to be buying a bunch more stuff just to fix up this old demonstration junk, right? Okay, so we'll just get some on here. That should be plenty. And now we can put this plate back in place. We have to make sure that our gears are lined up, our cogs are lined up. And then it'll just pop back in like that. Snap in place. Like that. Now, one thing that we have to make sure is that this cog is lined up. It's not right now. I'm on the wrong side. This white gear here has to go on this side. This little cog here has to go on the other side. So I have to lift up this side of the mechanism just a bit so that I can pull this lever to the correct side. Otherwise, it'll jam. I'm going to lift this up a bit again. I'm going to pull this lever up like that and then pop it in place. Because this lever rides on top of here, and when it goes down here, when the cam slides this way, it rides in this side and then drops down. This is what pulls it in place. And that's a big common mistake that people make when they work on these mechanisms, is that they put that on the wrong side and then they wonder why it doesn't work. Put the cut washer back on here. I will be putting a little bit more Molly Coat grease on here when I get the cut washer and so forth in place, just to lubricate these points. And we'll put on the clip. Okay, that should be plenty of lubricant for this mechanism. We're going to clean the encoder switch because it hasn't been done in years, and chances are it needs to be done. So to do that, I'm going to unsolder it and take it right out, and then we'll use some cleaner on it. So we'll heat it up and just pop it out of here. Going to use some solder wick just to get off this excess solder. Now, whenever using a soldering iron around any of these type of motors that have got a magnetic encoding on the side. You got to make sure that you don't touch the iron against the edge of the motor. This is magnetic, and it actually has, there's a little Hall sensor over here. If you touch the magnet at all with your hot soldering iron, you will basically raise the temperature beyond the cure temperature, and the magnetic signal that's imprinted in this is like magnetic tape. The magnetic signal will be erased, and then you'll have a motor that the speed changes every time it makes a rotation. So you have to be really careful. If you're working around here with an iron, don't touch that. I'm gonna release my little catches here on the side here so that I can lift the switch up a bit. And now when I heat it, it should just lift right off. Just like that. Now I can go and clean up the contacts here, or the solder pads, so that when I put it back in, it'll be nice and clean. As you can see, the mode switch itself is keyed, so you don't have to worry about getting it in the right position, because it's only going to go down in one point, in one position. That little keyway is going to line up with the slot. So we can take this thing apart. We do that just by squeezing the clips together on the other side here, and it'll just pop apart like that. And wonderbar! It's dirty. What should we use to clean this stuff? That's the $50,000 question. What cleaner should we use to clean these contacts? Well, I think I'm going to use some D100 cleaner, and I can either use the one-shot metered, but you know what? I've got the switch apart, so maybe we'll just use the liquid in the bottle, because that way I can just put a drop on there and we'll polish that up. I'll go get another cotton swab here so I can polish that up, and that way we're not wasting a lot of cleaner. I'm sure this will be good for a half a dozen or so thumbs down from some of the people out there. Put a couple drops on here. I don't think we'll need much of this stuff. It's pretty potent, right? And then just clean it up. We'll see how the contacts clean. We'll see how shiny they get compared to how dirty they were. I think you can see for yourself that they are cleaning quite nicely. Yum. Put a little more in here. There. I think that's quite an improvement over what we had before. So we'll put the switch back together. I guess I could put a drop on here just to put into the switch and work its way through, just to protect it. We'll put another drop on here. Pop the switch back together, rotate it a few times to distribute the cleaner, and keep the contacts free from oxygen. And now we'll just realign the switch. It goes back to, there's a little V groove here that lines up with the V groove in the switch. That's at the home position. And we can drop the switch back on and pop it in place. And now we'll resolder it. We'll resolder the terminals, and then we can test this thing and see whether this thing does anything. switch is resoldered. We'll plug this thing in and see whether it does anything. I guess I should probably put some more moly coat down here into the worm gear. We'll try loading the tape up and see whether it accepts the tape, which it does. And it now appears to load. Well, it's playing back, but I've got it playing in the 2-hour speed. Let's kick it down. There's a mode switch here. Set the speed. Where is it? There's a switch on here. Gotta find the switch. Record, still frame shift. Record play mode. 14 hours. Okay, long 14 hours. 14-hour real time. 24-hour. There's 24-hour real time. I think that's 20. Oh, it's 28 hours. This is 24 hours. Where is it here? Where did I see it? 14 hours, 28 hours. So that was probably the speed this was recorded in. In 2004. Still have to get used to how the buttons work on this thing, but there it is. There's playing back. And this is, oh, this is actually after I did my rental. So this is the house, because I had some old cameras up there, old color cameras, and you can see the difference in the quality between them too, because it's dark out there. This is before my driveway was actually even complete. And as you can see, this machine's not playing too well. It's got some bars across the picture. I don't know what some of these controls do. I'm just pushing buttons on here. Turning controls. Should be tracking controls on this thing. Black and white and color. Map time. Put it in freeze. Then you can go one frame at a time. There's some controls on here. Looks like it's tracking slow and normal. Still adjust. Well, that's what the still adjust does. But we're definitely getting some noise on that picture. I don't know if it just needs to be cleaned or what. We'll just eject the tape and see whether there's some dirt on the lower drum that's causing those lines. Thing's working though. It's incredible. After all those years, this thing actually still does something. So we'll just give the head a clean. The lower drum. Gonna make sure that there's no debris and stuff in here on the lower drum, because any debris in the groove along here on the bottom of the lower drum, you can see how dirty it is. I mean, it's filthy. This thing hasn't been cleaned forever and forever. It hasn't been used since 2004. That must have been the year that I went and bought a DVR, my first DVR. I've had 3 of them since then, because they generally don't tend to last that long as I found out. I shouldn't say that they don't last that long. It's just the first one I bought didn't last that long. The second one I bought lasted okay, but the resolution wasn't very good. So then I upgraded to a full 1080 HD, and that's the one that's having reliability problems. First the cooling fan failed, and then the power supply bit the dust. I'm going to clean the upper drum with this Q-tip, but I'm not going to clean the area of the video heads. I'm just cleaning the area above the heads. I'm going to use the paper, as I always do, to clean the heads. These heads feel like they're worn down to nothing. I don't feel anything protruding from the head. And that would not surprise me, because this thing used to run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I might even have a replacement head for this, huh? Go look. I probably do have a replacement head, and if I do, I should put one on. I should put it on this thing, even though it's not going to get used. You see what a cleaning will do? That has the picture looking normal. And this is how these machines looked like on playback. They did a real-time record where the machine continued to run. It didn't do the step, the tick, tick, tick like slow motion. They recorded in with the motor running continually, but on playback they were basically like a machine in slow-mo. You can see the time playing back in real time. That looks like that's probably, I don't know, 6 o'clock in the morning, I guess. 6 o'clock in the morning, and this would be 08/21/04. So if I hit the fast forward key here, this probably was, I think there's probably a ladder on the truck, on the roof of my truck there. I think at the time, if we look at the top camera, I think at the time I was probably working for a satellite installation company at the time, and you'll probably see me go out in the morning, heading out for my day of work. Won't be quite that early in the morning though, but if I fast forward this long, then probably will see myself go out. I'm sure I probably was working that morning. See, it's getting lighter out now. Sun's coming up. So if you put it in the 2-hour speed, it'll actually play it. You can see how fast the seconds are going. This is just, this TV doesn't like it. It's digital TV, right? Doesn't like sync signals that are not perfect. It's funny because if you look at my backyard here, it wasn't finished. This is when I first was building the house. I hadn't finished it, and that area in the bottom left corner that you see down here is there's actually a room there now. That was, where there's actually a room that goes all the way out back here now, all the way out back to about here. But we hadn't put that room on the house at the time, so this was my back door. The back door used to be at the back there, and it wasn't paved or anything because we were in the process of doing a major renovation, and we had finished the main part, but we hadn't finished the whole house. So we hadn't done the construction. We hadn't put that last room on at the back. One thing I just noticed here is my mother and my nephew and niece, when they were babies, were just coming over for a visit. So here they are arriving at my front door. 9:12 in the morning. It must have been on a Saturday or a Sunday, or probably a Sunday, because I think Sundays, well, usually Sundays I worked every day, but usually Sundays I start a little later. I haven't left yet for work. Check this out. I have a brand new replacement video head for this machine. I'm almost tempted to install this thing and see whether it will improve that picture. Because this head that's in here now, when I do the old finger test, you can't feel the heads. It's like they're worn down to almost nothing. As you can see, it's got this band in the middle of the picture. So I'm almost tempted to put that head in just for the heck of it and see if it makes any difference in the playback off this machine. And as I said, this machine should play back a standard VHS tape as well. If I put a regular SP recorded tape in this thing, it should play it, because it is compatible with SP. I just have to make sure that it's switched for SP. So the record play mode is 2 hours. And well, that could be a worn head that's causing that, and just not getting a good enough signal off the tape. Maybe we'll change that head. See if I can get this old beast working like it's supposed to. So to change a head on a VHS, one of these machines, take out the grounding spring. This is what discharges any static electricity that builds up in the upper drum. Otherwise, you'll get flashes or streaks of usually it's white streaks. And we'll just unsolder the inner contacts from the rotary transformer, which are these ones here, the 4 inner ones. See, when I use these things for my security system, I always had a spare head, because when the machine is in use 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the heads don't last that long, right? You're changing the head every couple thousand hours of use, and most of the time you probably get almost a year of use before it started to deteriorate. But they did wear out relatively quickly when they were being constantly run. So I used to buy a couple spares and always had one to go. And when a head wore out, I would just swap out to a new one, because they weren't expensive. These heads were maybe only $20 at the time. And then we're going to remove the screws. Now, there is a right and a wrong way to put these on, so you have to make sure you get them on the correct way. Otherwise, your A and your B fields will be reversed. So this one, the white, is facing to the left. Just got to make sure that when I take it off, that the new head, the white side, will go to the left. And the head drum should just, if it's unsoldered, it should just lift straight off. Of course, when they don't, then what you do is you put your soldering iron into the holes here and just let it heat up and heat the upper drum up a bit. What that will do is that will expand the upper drum enough, because the brass and aluminum are dissimilar metals, and it will cause the aluminum to expand and release the bond. So that's a trick that I bet you most of you don't know. Usually the heads will just slide right off, but a lot of times over time they get tight and they won't, so just heat them up. Heat up the 2 holes here. You don't have to heat it that hot, just put some heat into the head drum and then they usually will lift off fairly easily. Just like that. Now white is going on this side, and the side's painted over here, so we know which side the white side of the head goes to. Take the new head drum. Be careful not to touch the heads themselves. Just line it up with the holes. And press it down, and the wires for the rotary transformer will poke through. You can see the inside of this thing here. That, as you can see, that gunge, that, believe it or not, is oxide from the tape. As these wear down tape, because they run so slow, tapes do not last very long, and generally you would get maybe a week out of a tape if you were lucky. Not very many passes. So if the tape was rewinding every day and starting over again after like a 28-hour period, someone using one of these things for security would have a different tape every day of the week. And they'd have one tape for every day. And once the tapes had a few passes on them, the tapes were generally discarded. A lot of times when these were used for actual security recorders, like, you know, in banks or in retail outlets and stuff, if they were used in a commercial operation, the person responsible for security would store the tapes for a month before erasing them and reusing them again. That way they could go back and look at them if they had to, but they generally didn't use the tapes more than a couple passes because the tapes would wear out. And then small businesses would just leave the things running until the tapes failed, which is generally what I tended to do. I used to just let the things run, just keep using the same tape over and over again, and then eventually the tape would wear out and I would replace it. But that's what happens when the tape wears out. It gets all over the inside of the head drum there and contaminates it. Go solder the new head in place. Let's see how this looks. This tape looks like it's pretty badly worn actually. If you look at it, look at the ripples in this tape. Look at the scratches. This tape is one that's been used many, many times. Probably not a good idea to keep using it, but whatever. For this demonstration, it's fine. Okay, play. And let's switch our speed. As you can see, this looks a lot better. This was recorded though with worn out heads, but much better, much better. Hey, you know what we'll do? I'll make a recording on this thing in the long speed now that it's got new heads. Why not, right? Let's see how this thing actually performs. I'll get something I can record on it. Okay, I've just plugged my DVD player into it, and I've got some stuff playing off of a Blu-ray disc. Actually, this is stuff I downloaded off the internet. I'm going to put a brand new tape in this thing, one that's never been used. As you can see, the incredible slow speed that these tape reels turn at. And there's playback. 28L, that's 14-hour mode. 28L and 28 frame at a time. And of course there's a 2-hour speed, which will play it back at full speed, at fast speed. But there's playback off this thing. Again, they don't look great on a digital monitor because these were designed for analog, but there's playback there. And we'll stop it. And that's about it. That's how these time-lapse machines, my soldering iron was burning itself out there. I could smell plastic. The iron had touched the side. Okay, that's how these things work. Hope you enjoyed this video into this really old, ancient time-lapse VCR. We'll catch you in the next one. Yeah, I know I didn't put the ground spring back on there. This head's not staying in here, right? I just tested this head's coming out because I'm going to put this up on eBay and sell it.